There's a $5 clay pot you can bury in your garden tonight that cuts your summer water bill by up to 70% and keeps every plant within 3 feet of it perfectly hydrated for an entire week without you ever turning on a hose. No batteries, no timers, no moving parts, no professional installation. A retired engineer in Arizona buried 6 of these pots across his backyard vegetable beds in the spring of 2022. By midsummer, his water bill had dropped from $190 a month to $58. His tomatoes were producing twice the harvest of the previous year, and his basil and peppers had not wilted once during a brutal stretch of 110-degree afternoons. He had not bought a single piece of irrigation equipment from a hardware store. He had not laid a single foot of drip line. He had not programmed a single timer. His total investment was $32 for 6 unglazed terracotta pots from a Mexican import shop. His neighbor had spent $2,400 that same year installing a smart sprinkler system controlled from his phone, and was still standing in his yard at sunset every evening, dragging a hose to plants the system missed. The global irrigation equipment market is worth over $8.5 billion in 2025, and the broader smart irrigation segment is projected to climb past $277 billion by next year. Rainbird, Hunter Industries, Toro, and Netafim dominate every aisle of every garden center in North America, with bottles, controllers, drip lines, sensors, valves, and app-controlled systems that promise to revolutionize the way you water your yard. The average American homeowner spends between $400 and $2,500 installing residential irrigation equipment, plus another $80 to $200 a year in city water charges and maintenance fees. Multiply that across 80 million single-family homes with active gardens, and you begin to see the size of the machine that depends on you never learning what a Mesopotamian farmer figured out 4,000 years before the first sprinkler head was ever manufactured. A $5 unglazed clay pot that delivers water more efficiently than any electronic system on the market, using nothing but the laws of physics that govern porous materials, is not a product the irrigation industry can build a subscription business around. So they buried it under decades of marketing for branded sprinkler heads and Wi-Fi-enabled controllers, and let generations of homeowners forget that the most efficient watering technology in human history is older than the wheel. They did not bury this method because it failed. They buried it because a clay pot cannot be patented, cannot be branded, and cannot be sold with a warranty plan or annual service fee. This is the story of the simplest, oldest, and most efficient irrigation system ever invented, the civilizations that perfected it across 4 continents, and the modern industry that hopes you never dig a hole in your own backyard. Welcome to Forbidden Gardening. If these stories matter to you, the subscribe button and the bell are how this knowledge survives another generation. Here we dig up what the irrigation industry quietly buried. Let me take you back to where this story really begins. The earliest known written description of clay pot irrigation appears in a Chinese agricultural manuscript called the Fan Shengqi Shu, compiled during the Western Han Dynasty in the 1st century BCE. The manuscript instructed farmers to bury unglazed clay vessels next to their crops, fill them with water, and let the porous walls of the vessels release moisture slowly into the surrounding soil. But the Chinese were not the original inventors. Archaeological evidence from ancient Mesopotamia, dating back nearly 4,000 years, shows clay pots buried in agricultural fields specifically for this purpose. The technique was already old when the Chinese wrote it down. From there, it spread along trade routes across the entire ancient world. Roman farmers used clay irrigation pots they called auli, scattered through their kitchen gardens and orchards. Persian and Indian gardeners refined the practice during the medieval period, embedding aulas in the courtyards of palace gardens that bloomed in defiance of the surrounding desert. North African Berber farmers carried the technology across the Sahara, and Spanish colonists carried it across the Atlantic. The Hohokam people of what is now Arizona used clay pot irrigation to grow corn, beans, and squash in the most punishing desert in North America, supporting cities of tens of thousands of people for over 1,000 years before European contact. The word olla comes from the Spanish word for clay pot, but the technology itself belongs to no single civilization. Every culture that ever faced a hot, dry summer with limited water arrived at the same elegant solution by independent invention. Then came 1959. On a kibbutz in southern Israel, an engineer named Simcha Blas invented modern drip irrigation, using plastic tubing and emitter heads to deliver controlled drops of water directly to plant roots. The technology was a genuine breakthrough, and within 20 years, it had revolutionized commercial agriculture across the developed world. The drip irrigation industry exploded into a multi-billion-dollar global market dominated by companies like Netafim and Rainbird. And almost overnight, the 4,000-year-old Ola disappeared from the conversation. Not because it stopped working. It vanished because it could not be sold by the foot, programmed by an app, or replaced every 5 years when the plastic UV degraded. Before I go any further, I need to stop and tell you something important. This video is just the first layer of what the irrigation industry has spent decades burying. I spent months compiling every forgotten gardening technique, every suppressed home remedy, every cheap natural method into one complete archive. All of it is inside the complete Forbidden Gardening Vault, the exact Ola sizing chart for different plants and bed dimensions, the banana peel rose food formula, the Epsom salt schedule, the vinegar and salt weed killer recipe, the aspirin and milk tomato formula, the lawn tonic recipe your grandfather mixed in his garage, the diatomaceous earth method that ends pests without harming bees, over 12 complete garden guides in one vault, every page built for immediate use this weekend in your own yard. The link is in the description. But stay here because the physics behind this clay pot makes every electronic irrigation system on the market look completely over-engineered. Here's what actually happens when you bury an unglazed clay pot in your garden and fill it with water. Unfired or low-fired terracotta clay is permeable at the microscopic level. Its walls contain millions of tiny interconnected pores, far too small for liquid water to flow through under pressure, but perfectly sized for water molecules to migrate slowly along the surfaces of the pore walls. When the soil around the pot is dry, the water inside the pot is drawn outward by a force called soil moisture tension. Dry soil literally pulls water through the clay walls, drop by drop, until the surrounding soil reaches the same moisture level as the water inside the pot. At that point, the migration stops automatically. The soil cannot become oversaturated. The water inside the pot does not run off, evaporate from the surface, or pool in the wrong place. This is the elegance that no electronic system has ever matched. And Ola does not need a sensor to detect when the soil is dry. The soil itself reaches into the pot and takes what it needs. And Ola doesn't need a timer to shut off when the soil is wet. Equilibrium does that automatically. And Ola does not lose water to surface evaporation, because all of the water is delivered 3 to 12 inches below the soil surface, beneath the dry crust where the sun cannot reach it. Studies cited by gardening extension services and water conservation agencies estimate that Ola irrigation reduces water consumption by 50 to 70% compared to surface watering with a hose, and by 30 to 40% compared to modern drip irrigation systems. The plant roots themselves grow toward the pot over time, wrapping around its outer walls and drawing moisture exactly where they need it. If you have made it this far, you already understand more about plant hydration physics than most homeowners spending thousands on smart sprinkler controllers. Subscribe and share this with someone still standing in their yard at dusk, dragging a hose around dying tomatoes. Now stay with me, because the money trail behind this suppression is the real story. You cannot patent a clay pot. The basic design has been in continuous human use for 4,000 years and exists in archaeological collections on 5 continents. You cannot build an $8 billion irrigation equipment industry on a $5 product that lasts 20 years, buried in soil with zero maintenance. You cannot create a subscription model around a technology that has no batteries to replace, no app to update, no annual service plan, and no replacement parts. The economic engine of the modern irrigation industry depends on one psychological lever. The homeowner must believe that real water management requires Wi-Fi controllers, soil moisture sensors, weather-based scheduling, and professionally installed pipe networks buried under their landscaping. A clay pot that does the same job better for $10 and one afternoon of digging is a wrecking ball through that entire business model. I need to be honest with you about the real limits of Ola irrigation. The pots only water plants within a roughly 3-foot radius, which means a large vegetable bed or orchard requires multiple Olas spaced strategically. They're not ideal for lawns, ground covers, or any planting where you need broad, even coverage across hundreds of square feet. In freezing climates, Olas must be dug up and stored indoors over winter because trapped water will expand and crack the clay during a deep freeze. They work best in raised beds, container gardens, vegetable plots, and individual ornamental plantings. They are a perfect solution for the right application not a universal replacement for every irrigation need. Here's exactly how to do it in your own garden. Buy unglazed terracotta pots from any Mexican import shop, garden center, or online supplier. A 2-gallon olla costs between $8 and $25 and waters a 3-foot radius of soil. You can also build your own by gluing 2 unglazed terracotta plant pots, mouth to mouth, or with food-safe silicone, sealing the bottom drainage hole with a flat stone or terracotta plug, and leaving the top one open. Dig a hole in your garden bed deep enough to bury the olla up to its neck, leaving only the opening above ground. Position your plants within a 3-foot radius of the buried pot. Fill the olla with water from a hose or watering can. Cover the opening with a flat stone, lid, or saucer to prevent evaporation and keep mosquitoes out, and walk away. Refill once a week in mild weather, twice a week during heat waves. That is the entire system. No timers, no batteries, no apps, no service plans. A homesteader in New Mexico documented her vegetable garden online across 3 full growing seasons after switching from a $1,800 drip irrigation system to a network of 15 handmade ollas. Her summer water bills dropped by 65% in the first year. Her tomato yields doubled. Her plants survived a brutal heat dome in 2023 that killed her neighbors' drip irrigated gardens. Her total ongoing irrigation cost was $0 per year. This knowledge did not die because it stopped working. It died because it worked too well, lasted too long, and required nothing the irrigation industry could sell you on a recurring basis. Mesopotamian farmers used these pots 4,000 years ago. Han Dynasty Chinese agronomists wrote the technique into the world's first agricultural textbook 2,000 years ago. Roman, Persian, Indian, Berber, Spanish, and Hohokam gardeners all rediscovered it independently across every dry climate humans have ever tried to farm. And then one generation of homeowners stopped using it because a glossy catalog told them the engineers at Hunter Industries had a better way. The engineers at Hunter Industries did not have a better way. They had a more profitable way. The clay is still in the import shop. The pot is still on the shelf. The physics has not changed in 4,000 years. The only thing that changed is who convinced you that you needed a Wi-Fi controller to do what gravity and porous ceramic have done since the dawn of civilization. If this vault opened something for you today, subscribe and share this video. The next vault opens soon, and what is inside is going to make every nursery's most popular flowering shrub suddenly look like the most expensive trick in the garden.